Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. I hope you're all doing well. We've made it through Monday, and we are here live on Behance, kicking off the Daily Creative Challenge for this week, which, as we discussed yesterday, we're mixing it up a little bit. We're introducing Photoshop into the mix, and we have Photoshop and XD. And good morning to Vahid, Agnes, Samuel, Iris, Vladair. A lot of people joining us live in the chat this morning. If you have questions during this process, definitely throw them in there. Let me know. Hopefully my audio issue is fixed this morning. We had a little bit of a delay yesterday. But a lot of people are asking why we're introducing Photoshop into the mix. And I want to spend a minute or so kind of diving into that. So the reason what we found is that a lot of UI and UX designers are still using Photoshop, and they've been using Photoshop kind of like myself for 10 years, maybe even more. And it's one of those things that is difficult to move off of. And good morning, Jay Lewis, Maya, Tyler, Ruth, all these awesome designers joining us live on Behance. So what we wanted to try to do is show off a few workflows on how XD can help improve your process. And there's some really interesting features in Adobe XD that you can utilize to boost your Photoshop designs, right? So what we're going to be doing throughout the next 2 weeks, or at least 9 days, is we're going to be taking Photoshop documents, templates that we're providing for you, and we're going to be showing you what you can do in XD to kind of help that process. So let me hop over to my screen. Boop, there we go. And here's the Daily Creative Challenge, which you can find on behance.net/Daily Creative Challenge. And at the top, we have our new Photoshop icon right there beside XD. And if you are not registered yet, definitely hit that register now button. That will allow you to get notifications every single day so you know when a new challenge is available. And if you scroll down a little bit, you have a little bit of a 1, 2, 3, 4 on how this works. So every day you're gonna get a challenge. Every morning at 8 o'clock, 8:30 Pacific time, I'm gonna be right here live and showing off the new challenge and giving you some tips and tricks on how to use Adobe XD if you've never used it before. And then you're going to create a prototype using Photoshop and Adobe XD, and make sure that when you share it on Behance, you use the keyword XD Daily Challenge. And the importance of that is that we can actually go ahead and search on Behance XD Daily Challenge, and we will see all your amazing entries. And what we try to do is every single day, I will jump on here and show off a few of them that really stood out from the previous day. And then at the very end, next Friday, we're gonna be showing off a lot of them. So we'll have our usual show, and then at the end of it, I'm just gonna be going ham and just showing a bunch of designs that have come over the last 2 weeks, which is gonna be really fun. You can also join us on Slack. So if you scroll down even more, and there's a lovely Slack link right above my head, bit.ly/XD Slack, and make sure you use the right capitalization. And basically, let me go ahead and where's my screen? And there's Slack. And we have amazing people from all over the world. We have over 9,000 people joining us in Slack from everywhere you can possibly imagine. There's a help channel if you need some help. There's design feedback, and of course, announcements and chat. So good stuff. And today's challenge is not showing up. Let me go ahead and hard refresh, see if this pops up. And for those asking how long the session will be, it'll be about half an hour, maybe a little bit less. So today's challenge will appear here, and basically you'll be able to download the template. My cache probably isn't clearing. You'll be able to download the template, and it's a Photoshop document. But what's cool about this is that you can use these Photoshop documents directly in Adobe XD, and I'll show you that in a second. So this is kind of what you're gonna be presented with every single day. And some days we'll have one artboard, some days we'll have multiple artboards. And this is today's challenge, to design an expressive e-commerce web experience. Now, what exactly does that mean? Because someone was asking in Slack not too long ago. That's up to you. We really want you to use XD to its fullest potential. Use things like repeat grids or overlays or animated interactions, and really make it as expressive as possible, right? And we have some color schemes if you want to start off with. We also have some links at the bottom, but you really want to focus on some of this stuff, right? This is the homepage of this e-commerce experience, and we have an overlay, which we'll talk about in a second once we get into XD. But we wanted to focus on a few things that XD can really do to help boost your UI and UX projects. Specifically, in this case, repeat grids, which I touched on a little bit yesterday, right? And here's an example that a lot of UI and UX designers might run into. Here is a card, right? You might have on your website. It could be a photo gallery, it could be a shop, whatever it might be, right? So what you might want to do, let me pause this because it's distracting me. You might want to repeat this over to the right a bunch of times and add some images and things like that. So let me grab this card. And what I might want to do is go into Finder, grab an image. Let's say this one here of this happy guy in a red sweater. He's definitely ready for the holidays. I'll make this smaller. Position this over top of the card and clip it. And I can move it in place just like that. And I can change the name, red shirt. I can change the price if I want to, and so on and so forth. So once this card is finished in Photoshop, I would then have to duplicate this over to the right. I would then have to go back to Finder, grab another image, drag it into Photoshop, resize it, put it in place, clip it, remove the previous image, change the text, so on and so forth. So it's a little bit of a time-consuming process when talking about repeated elements in Photoshop. And then if you want to add other elements like overlays on top of the current artboard without having to duplicate it and create another one, it's a little bit of a process, right? So things like that in Adobe XD are so much simpler, and I want to show you that today. So we're going to hop over to Finder, and right here we have that exact same PSD template that we provided for you. And if you do not have Photoshop, you don't have to worry because you can open Photoshop documents and Illustrator documents directly in Adobe XD. So I'm going to grab this document, drag it to my dock, and pop it on Adobe XD, and it's going to spring to action, and XD is going to import all the groups, all the artboards, all the layers, everything, almost everything, and you'll be able to continue your work. And what's cool is you have all these colors on the side. So if there's a few of them that really stand out to you, let's say this vibrant scheme really stands out. So you can select these colors with your Shift key held down. And then in your Assets panel, which is right down here at the bottom, this icon right here is your Assets panel. And Antonio is asking, why are we doing it in Photoshop first instead of going directly to XD? So most people are going to go directly to XD. We wanted to show you that you can take Photoshop documents, existing Photoshop documents, and bring them into XD and continue working. So you don't have to do any work in Photoshop if you don't want to. Some people might, but you don't have to. You can definitely bring it into XD and continue working. So I have all those colors selected. I can just press the colors, the plus button beside colors, and it's going to automatically add those colors to my Assets panel. And what you're going to see in a few minutes is oh, am I not live? Uh-oh. Let me know if I am. Okay, looks like I'm okay. Some people are having issues with the feed, so I'm still live. Okay, we're good. So what you'll notice in a few minutes is that using the Assets panel, you can globally change colors across your document, which is super helpful. So back over here to the repeat grid, what we want to do is we want to be able to duplicate this across our artboard, right? So I'm going to click on this card, and if I go over to my layers right down here, we have our assets and we have our layers, and we have our group that imported from Photoshop. And what I can do, I can simply press on this repeat grid button over to the right. I'm going to press repeat grid, and you're going to notice we have these new handles, one to the right and one to the bottom, and that will allow me to just pull out this element across my document. Just like that, super simple. And I can also duplicate it downwards if I wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it right there. And now we have 4 elements that kind of extend across our document. And we can move this into place if we wanted to, anywhere we want. But what's really cool about this is adding content is super simple. So let me go back to Finder. And I have these images here. I also have a text file, which I'll get to in a second. And we have someone saying, Photoshop not recommended to design websites or mobile apps, is too heavy. So the interesting thing about that is, even though Photoshop is not built for UI and UX design, is a lot of people use it for UI and UX design because they're so comfortable with it. And that's kind of why we're doing this series, is to show you that if you are one of those designers, and there are many who use Photoshop for UI and UX design, you can use XD as well to kind of improve that workflow. So that's kind of what we're doing this week and next week. So I have these images here, and instead of dragging one at a time, I could do that, but instead of doing that and clipping it and duplicating like we did in Photoshop, all I have to do is just grab one of the images with them selected and just pop them onto any one of these cards. And you're noticing they highlight in Adobe XD. And that tells me it's going to mask it. And when I let go, it's going to mask all those images into those cards, and I can easily double click on any of them and adjust that mask if I needed to. That one looks good. This one I'm going to move down just a little bit so I see more of her head. This one I'm going to scale up. There we go. Perfect. And that looks great. Maybe I'll scale it down just a little bit more. But what's even cooler is it also works with text. So if I switch back over to Finder, I have this plain text document. All it is just a bunch of products, right? Nothing fancy. I'm going to grab that text document, drag it right onto any one of those text layers, and it's going to automatically populate the repeat grid. And like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter if you have one object in your repeat grid or several hundred, maybe even 1,000, it will work, and it will work fast, which is really cool. So that's looking good, but we're noticing that some of these icons at the bottom are kind of hard to see, so we might want to move them. Well, in Photoshop, if we had all these elements, right, and we remove this one up to the top, we'd have to do the same thing for this one and this one and this one. But what we can do is simply go into the repeat grid, grab that icon, which is called Quick Look, and move it up to the top. And you're noticing that they all move up to the top, which is super cool. So it updates any elements that you move around throughout the repeat grid. It also works with colors. So if I select, let's go back over to my assets panel. Let's say I like this color a lot. I can press that, or I can press this color or this color, and it automatically updates it throughout the repeat grid, right? Let me just select white, and I'm gonna press plus to add that white color to my assets panel. Super cool and super simple. Now you're probably wondering what this guy is over here. We have this weird overlay, and it's kind of a weird shaped artboard. It doesn't really match the size of this artboard over here to the left. Well, what if you wanted, when you click on this search icon or the quick look icon, what if you wanted that overlay to appear over top of this artboard so you don't have to make an entirely new artboard like this with that overlay on top of it, right? So what we're able to do, we're able to use prototyping in Adobe XD to make that happen. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hop into the prototype mode, and I'm going to select this quick look icon right here. And I'm simply going to drag this blue handle over to the right to this second artboard, which is our overlay. And this window will pop up with our prototype options. And in this case, I want the trigger to be a tap trigger because I want the user to be able to tap on that quick look icon and it's going to trigger something. And in that case, it's going to trigger an overlay. And when I do that, let me zoom out a little bit. We have this green handle that allows us to position where we want that overlay to appear on our artboard. I'm going to leave it right there. And if I press that blue handle one more time, I can choose how I want the animation to take place. So I might want it slide right, which basically goes from left to right. And I'm going to have it, let's say, ease out. So at the end, it slows down just a little bit. And I'll have the duration of, let's say, 0.4 seconds. And now what I can do is with the first artboard selected, I'm going to press the play button right at the top here. There's a desktop preview button. And now when I click on that overlay, or sorry, the quick look button, that overlay slides out and it looks like I didn't position it properly. So I can simply press on the blue handle one more time, move this down, there we go. Press play again, click on quick look, it slides in from the left. I can press the X to close it, and I can make some changes if I need to. So if I grab the guy with the red shirt, put him back over here, scale this up, there we go. And one more time, press play, press quick look, and it slides in. I can press the X and slides back out. So there's no need for an additional artboard of this size. You can simply have your little elements like keyboards or search overlays or any of that sort of thing on separate artboards and use overlays. So Katerina is asking why in the program the transition option time is disappear. So one thing to note about the time transition is that it's only available when you have an entire artboard selected. So you probably noticed when I was in prototype mode and I had just the quick look icon selected. Under trigger, time is not available. But if you click on the entire artboard and drag the handle on the right, now we have time, because time only works on entire artboards. Good to note. So that's overlays, but let's go back to colors for a second. So let's go ahead and say I wanted to, use that color, let's say on catalog, right? Let's say I like this color here. Use that there. I'll use that on the text as well. Just press on that color. And I might want to use it, where else can I use it? Let me go over here to this artboard. I might want to use it on this text right here, and maybe on the border, so I can right click and press apply as border. Preeti is asking, how do you add a shadow behind the overlay? So if I click on this object right here, back into my layers panel, I can actually add a shadow right down here. And what I can do is I can extend this artboard a little bit downwards, and now we have a little bit of a shadow, and I can change the properties of this shadow over here to the right. So I can make this a little bit longer, let's say 5 down, and the blur, I'll keep it around 6, and I can adjust the opacity as I want to. So there's a little bit of a shadow, and if I go back into the desktop preview, press the quick look icon, there's now a little bit of a shadow on that overlay. Cool stuff. So back to colors again. And you can easily switch between assets and layers. Command Y or Control Y goes to layers. Command Shift Y or Control Shift Y goes to your assets panel. So I've used that color, this lovely, I don't know what you call this color, peach maybe? I use this color throughout my document, and not just on one artboard, but on multiple artboards. And this artboard over here and this artboard. So what if you're at a point in your project where you decide, or your client decides, you know what, I'm not loving this color a little bit, I want it changed. Well, sometimes that's a pain. Sometimes you have to go through each and every layer and make those changes everywhere, especially across your multiple artboards. And if you had hundreds of artboards, I would just give up at that point. But what's cool about Adobe XD is these colors in your assets panel can change globally. So if I can just right click on this color, press edit, and watch what happens to these colors as I edit this. They all change across my entire document. If I scroll over here, it changes here as well. So if I wanted this blue, I can easily do that. And the same works for colors, character styles, and symbols. Here's what's really cool about symbols. Let's go ahead and look at this quick look icon, right? Let's say I wanted to change this across my entire document. Right now it's a standard layer. But if I go over to my assets panel, press symbols, the plus button beside symbols, I'm going to turn this into a symbol. So now if I edit this, it's going to change throughout the document. What if I want to replace it completely? Over here on my little icon pack, I have a new icon that I want to drag into XD. Let me actually go back to layers, make sure it's not in that repeat grid for now. Drag it in here. There's my new icon, looks great. And I want to turn that into a symbol as well. So back in my assets, I can either press the plus button or Command or Control K to turn it into a symbol. And at this point, I can completely delete it because I don't need it. It's already in my symbols, right? Now, all I have to do is grab this new search map icon, whatever you want to call it, and drag it onto this existing symbol. And it's going to replace it across all instances. I can change the color if I wanted to. I can also change the size. There we go, that looks good, and positioned into place. So there's all these little tiny, features in Adobe XD, some of them not so tiny, that will help you tremendously throughout your process. And then there's the whole animation side of things. So let's say I wanted, when someone presses add to cart, it basically shoots up a little icon, a little bubble to the top of this cart icon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this artboard downwards, and I'm going to grab my ellipse tool, zoom in here, and add a small little bubble to the top on the cart icon. Turn off the border, add a red fill, right? And I want this to be animated. So what I can do is I can grab this, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to paste it on this artboard here, and I'm just going to put it right here. And I'm going to turn down the opacity to 0. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm also going to change the text of this layer, view in cart. Not chart, cart. There we go. So now on this artboard here, we basically have this hidden red badge. And on this artboard here, we have the badge over here. And it's the exact same layer name. And you can make sure you have the same layer names in your layers panel. I'm not going to name this badge, just so we're all following and everything's up to date. Badge. Now, how do we get it from this location with an opacity of 0 to this location with opacity of 100%? Well, back in prototype mode, all we have to do is select the add to cart text or the button and drag that to this artboard down here. And we want this to be a tap trigger. We don't want it to be an overlay. We actually want it to be auto animate. And what's going to happen is when auto animate is selected and you play play a preview, XD is going to look at the differences between the first artboard and the second artboard, and it's going to just animate it magically, right? I'm going to do, let's say, a snap. So once it gets to the top over here, it's going to snap into place, and we'll do a slightly slower duration this time just so we can see it happening. Perfect. Now we're going to press play. So we have our quick look icon, which slides that in. And because I did change it, let me go ahead and fix that for a second. Let me move this back down here. Oh yeah, I made the artboard bigger. That's what I did wrong. There we go, much better. All right, back in prototype mode. Let me fix that a little bit. Beautiful, that looks much better. So we have our quick look icon, which slides out, our beautiful overlay. We can easily click on that to close it. And then we have an add to cart, and watch the little button. There's a little badge that just flies up over there. The text changes on view to cart. Let me play that again so you can see that. It's a fun little animation, maybe not so practical, but it's there. And the point is that in XD, you can make very small changes to just make these cool animations. And all you have to do is design. You don't have to worry about timelines or keyframing. You just have to design the first state and the second state, and XD will figure out the rest. So there's a lot of really interesting features in Adobe XD that you're going to learn about over the next 2 weeks or 9 days that can really help you in your design projects, especially if you're currently using Photoshop or Illustrator for UI and UX design. And I'm going to definitely be back over the next 9 days showing you all those cool little features, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some of your work. And once you are finished with your project, you can start from the template, or you can create something completely brand new from scratch, as long as it falls into the Expressive e-commerce web experience theme. Once you've finished with all this magical goodness, you go right up here to the top. This icon right here is the share icon. You press that, and you can publish your prototype just like this from XD. You can give it a title, you can allow comments, hotspots, you can require a password if you want, and then you can publish this directly to Behance. You can either share the images, or you can publish an embeddable prototype. Now at the moment, Auto Animate does not embed perfectly on Behance, but that is in the works. But definitely share it, and make sure to use the keyword XD Daily Challenge so we can go ahead and view them tomorrow. So I hope you all enjoyed this quick little session. I can't wait to see all of your amazing work. Definitely join us in Slack. Once again, that Slack channel is right here, bit.ly/XD Slack. We're in there all day, every day, checking out work, answering questions, and I will be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, to kick off challenge day number 2, which is going to be fun. This whole week is going to be fun. We're going to start off a little bit easy, and we're going to work our way to some more advanced features. So thanks for joining us, everyone, in the chat. Jan, Sherry, Carly, Jan again, Chris, Amit, Sakishi. Thanks so much, everyone, and stick around. We have some great editorial design sessions coming right up just in a few minutes. So we'll see you all tomorrow, bright and early. Take care, everyone.
for you, honey. You reach for me.